What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. After Sound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. We also stream right here in this channel every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday morning, so come by and say hello. All right, guys, we're almost at 4 days into the Zyriel promo card sale, and obviously this was a highly contentious promo card. A lot of people were not very happy about it, claiming price, whatever, and obviously it did not sell out. Unlike previous sales for the team, it did not sell out right away. Right, we're almost at 4,000 sales. So when you think about how much time is left versus how much have sold, we're actually on a decent pace. But obviously, all of this stuff is usually hype loaded, and so therefore front loaded. And so ultimately, where I'm looking at this is, okay, what are some of the lessons that we can take away? Now, before we jump into that, I do want to take a look at where the value of Zyriel is in the marketplace. So if we go here into promo cards and how it compares to its peers, I am actually somewhat impressed at the value that it's holding, right, at $40. Now, keep in mind, what's interesting is this $40 is less than the cost that you can have on the store, right? So if you buy it off the secondary market, you're actually getting it for cheaper, considering where DEC is right now, considering where vouchers are at. But again, let's look at it just across at its peers. Do you think this card is better than Dr. Blight? Do you think this card is better than Oh Sure? Again, a lot of that's going to come down to personal preference. I personally think that Dr. Blight is probably one of the best cards in the game. And, across the promo cards here, it's one of those must-have cards. Oh Sure, not as much. And I think that's priced kind of, accordingly to where it's at. But Zyriel here has significantly less circulation, but is holding price closer to where Dr. Blight is overall, right? And we're just looking at the legendary monsters here. You got some legendary summoners, which are a different category. And then obviously some common promo cards here. So what's interesting about where the price is at, assuming we don't sell any more cards, right? I do think that we will sell some cards, but assuming we don't sell any more cards, there's a decent amount of liquidity. Let's see how much is, in the $40 range here. If I just go as far down as possible, let's see where the 45 card limit is at. Okay, so we have 45 cards selected. I would say that maybe we're at about 50, under 60 cards that would be, considered under $50 and really push this closer to where the value is at the store level, right? Ultimately, the way that I view this is, unless there's like a massive dip in the market, we're probably just going to see people slowly start to eat through that supply as they go BCX by BCX. Maybe somebody comes in and wants to have a max copy. Maybe somebody wants to come in and have just a, silver or gold copy. Like for myself, I only have one BCX right now. Shout out to Vet V. Thank you for that. But, I'd love to get this thing to gold if I can, just for the rust. But at the very least, I'm considering buying 2 more when I can, to get 3 BCX and at least have it ready or available for silver with the Divine Shield and additional attack. But again, that's just my own personal thing. What I'm trying to say here is that we'll probably see, unless there's a massive dip in the market, this may be, I don't want to say that it's going to be the lowest, because there's still too much time and too many other factors. But there's just way less supply out there for folks. And I know the people that have it already are, they're not planning on selling it, at least for the people who want to collect the cards as they are. So what are some of the lessons now? Well, a lot of folks were saying that it was priced too high. They were going to pass on it. The card wasn't really that great. It's a monster rather than a summoner. It's not neutral, right? Dual element is cool, but besides the novelty of it, there's not much else value there. I agree with actually some of that, right? Had this been a dual element summoner, that would have been meta changing, right? Meta breaking in many ways, versus a dual element monster. Now, don't get me wrong, it's cool, it's a great card, and I love the fact that I can use it both in 2 different splinters. But the meme going out there where it's just like, okay, well, if you're gonna call this 2 legendaries, or 2 different legendaries in the price of 1, then that, then it's like, what's that called? Neutral cards are like 6 legendaries for the price of 1, right? You can play them all 6 splinters. So again, I think that shows the value of or the utility of neutral cards. And ultimately, maybe an argument can be made that in the future, if they were to do something like this, more dual element stuff, it should be dual element summoners, as that is more meta changing, meta breaking evenly, right? Or even. So when I think through this, I'm just like, could there have been way more hype? Would there have been more hype if this had been a dual element summoner? Hell yeah, right? Because all of us would be playing like Zyriel and Lyra the Dark, or Lord of Darkness with Adelaide Brightwing, and all of these different meta shifts would have potentially happened. But maybe the game wasn't ready for that yet. This is where we're at, and hopefully at some point in the future, it sounds like the team was hinting towards doing stuff like that at some point, right? And this, I would be shocked. I would be absolutely shocked if Zyriel was the first and last dual element card in the game. It's definitely a cool trend, and I would love to see more of it over time. So that being said, we're talking about the monster versus summoner aspect. If we go to the price point, now here's the thing: the price point. I don't want to get too hung up on this. I think the market has already spoken for itself. A lot of people sat out on the promo, myself included, right? But again, I don't want to judge anybody's personal financial things. And for me, for me, at the end of the day, if I'm going to put a ton of money into the game, it's going to be into maxing out as much of my CL cards as possible, right? My Chaos Legion cards. And I haven't even moved on to Rift Watchers yet. Now, the only reason that I've jumped on things like, what's that called? Lux Vega in the past is because I did view Lux Vega as something that was like meta changing, meta breaking, because it was the first and maybe only neutral summoner. We may get one way further down the line, but it was something that was super, super unique. And therefore the price obviously was significantly higher at the time, but a lot of people looked at that in that way. Now, here's the thing. I actually have confidence, right? I'm saying that there's a non-zero chance that we could still sell out of Zyriel the Fallen. I know that right now sales have stalled because it's cheaper to buy it on the secondary market, but keep in mind that crypto can move quickly. And in 26 days, we may see certain things happen within the broader crypto market. Again, I don't know. I'm not trying to make any predictions here, and there's nothing specifically as a catalyst, but you know me, I'm following the bank failures. I'm following the financial institutions that are, everything that's going on there. Every time another bank fails, Bitcoin shoots up. I don't know if we hit a moment where another bank fails and all of a sudden Bitcoin's like, you know what? I'm tired of spending time here around 30K. Let's jump up to, high 30s or 40K. If something like that happens as we get closer to the summer, that profit that people make from crypto can come back into the game. As we get closer to other elements in around the game, right? Maybe we see a promo for Genesis League goals. Maybe we see a promo for what's that called? Tower defense, right? Or we get some more interesting things about land. If there's a little bit more hype that comes into the game, there's a little bit more money that rushes into the game in other areas. Well, then people who bought or are buying like the GLX token at less than a penny, and let's say it jumps up, right? Because there's excitement about the game over the next couple of weeks. If it jumps up and all of a sudden people take their profits, it could come back into Zyriel. And keep in mind, 15,000 cards is not that much. 15,000 BCX, right? Right now, it's really just the hardcore collectors, in my opinion, and the top tier players that have bought the cards. I do think that there's also been a lot of, we'll call it rolling of the dice. So many people gambling, doing the 25 limit per transaction, or 25, in order to get that guaranteed gold foil, and hopefully get maybe an additional gold foil, and then using that to or selling off the regular foil to essentially cover their costs, right? And actually, I didn't even look at the gold foil cost for Zyriel, but I am curious to see where that has gone to. Let's see, promo card 225. So what's interesting is that the Zyriel, the gold foils are actually less than the Dr. Blight and Oshures. So again, I'm not trying to sit here and sell you the card and tell you that it's the most amazing thing. I do believe that this card will hold its value relatively well, just due to the fact that there's a novelty around it. And if we don't sell any more, or sell very few more, then it'll be one of the most scarce cards in the game. But, I agree with the folks, and I'll close with this, just taking it back to the price point. One thing that I saw, and this is coming from somebody who was a little salty, so I was trying to understand what their core argument was. But their core argument, despite the salt, was still, I think very pragmatic, where it's just like, had the team reduced the price slightly, would there have been more sales and then more money for the team? And it's like that argument can go both ways. Sure. Would it have inspired more people to buy in? Yes. But if more people had bought in, let's say you drop the price in half, right? Are you going to get more than double the amount of sales? Because that's what you would need in order to cover it. And I think a lot of people who were saying that the price was too high, in my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, right? In my opinion, if you were complaining about the price being too high, then a slight decrease in price, now I'm not talking about half off, but a slight decrease in price, like 10%, 20% reduced from where it's at, wouldn't have moved the needle for many folks, right? Like the card costs like what, 50 something bucks. If it cost $40, I don't know that people would have jumped in. So, I do think, and I'm not trying to like say that anybody's doing this with malice, but I think that argument is not as valid as people think that it is, right? Because when people saying like, oh, if you just charge less, then more people jump in. Yeah, some people might jump in, but more people, you're thinking about the fact that like if we drop the price in half, then a bunch of people are going to rush in. And maybe that is the case, but would it equal double the sales? And ultimately, they were making this argument from a pragmatic standpoint that we're trying to make sure, this is all going towards the team. We want to make sure that the team is getting this money, right, in order to support all the team members, the bills, whatever expenses that they got to pay. So, ultimately, I don't know what this means for future promo cards, but there is one thing that I think is really important that people should take into account, and that is the fact that the team has been listening, right? We've seen over the past, we'll call it 18 months, or not really 18 months, but since Waka last year, we've seen now a shift to single BCX, right? We've seen a shift to single BCX for these promo cards. It started off with Waka, then we had Lex Vega, all right? Thankfully, no Floyd Mayweather card, although I'm sure that probably would have been a max copy too. But ultimately, starting with the Salty Bear, and then Vruz, which is kind of, something that the community put in, but obviously the team signed off on. And here now with Zyriel, we're seeing this available at the single BCX level. Now, will they move back to max copies only? Maybe, but I doubt it. When we look at Zyriel and why it, quote unquote, didn't sell out or the hype wasn't there, I think there's other things that we can look at in terms of like taking those lessons and applying them to the future, right? For me, it's just like, had it been game-breaking, meta-breaking, being a summoner rather than a monster, I think that would have done a lot more. Had there been, again, the other argument about price point, had it been a little bit lower, maybe that would be the case. But keep in mind, guys, like, I know I said I'd close, but the last thing I'll say, this is not supposed to be a card for everybody, right? It is more accessible to everyone because of the fact that it's at single BCX. But at the end of the day, do you need this card to play? No, right? You need to get a couple packs, you need to get a couple cards, and then you're like off to the races. This is not a card that's needed by everybody, and that's why I go back to the whole meta breaking or game changing element of it. Ultimately, though, I hope that the team is happy with where the sale is at right now. Again, with 26 days left, I do think that there is still a solid chance that the team can get a lot of benefit out of it, and people will be coming in. So I don't want to call it too early, but since we're a couple of days in, we went through the initial hype phase. There may be more hype phases, whether that's externally within crypto or internally within Splinterlands over the next 3 weeks. Remember, stuff moves quickly in crypto. So I don't want to call things too early and say that this is a huge success or a huge failure or a mediocre. And at the end of the day, like, we don't really know what the team's goals were. Obviously, the team wants to sell out of all of them, but maybe 4,000, maybe all of them was a stretch goal, right? And maybe 4,000 was like, perfect, we hit it. Like, let's go. Anything else is just gravy. I don't know what the case is, but at this point, it's probably still too early to put a full stamp of success or failure on it. I'm just trying to look at what the initial hype and then the initial salt was around it and where that's led us to. And, we're not quite at 1/3. We're maybe closing in on like 30-ish% of Zyriel sold. But there's definitely things that I think for the future, right? I think there's definitely things that give us as a community and hopefully the team some food for thought as we move forward with hopefully more of these promo cards, the quarterly promo cards. I find them to be exciting, and I think that they do offer something to the community, to the game specifically, to shake up the meta. And yes, I know it's not meta breaking, but it's definitely meta changing, right? I've used the card. Shout out to Darkest Night, he's letting me use it, hopefully for some content and a review in the future. But it's pretty good. It's pretty good if you find certain unique elements, or not elements, but situations. I've had a decent win rate with the card when I'm not spamming it just to spam it. So that is all I have for you guys in this video. Sorry, this went on a little bit longer than I was hoping for, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. How are you feeling about the sale so far? What are the things that you would want the team to know in terms of maybe some lessons learned, your perspective overall? And hopefully we can help guide the conversation in the future in a constructive way, and not just throwing salt and saying like the team is just doing a cash grab. Yeah, obviously there's a cash grab. The team is trying to create something cool for us and pay for their bills. So I always find that argument funny. But that is all I have for you guys. Have an amazing rest of your day. I'll catch you all in the next one and see you around the game. Take care.